Welcome back to everyone here in the room and online. We're now pleased to continue our Politico 28 program for 2025. To do that, please welcome with me to the stage Politico's Deputy Editor-in-Chief in Europe, Kate Day.
And thank you to you all. It's so good to be here on our 10th Politico 28th. I can't believe we've got to 10. Earlier we revealed our #1 doer for 2025, Ursula von der Leyen. We still have 3 categories left, including our most powerful person and our top disruptor. But first we're ready to unveil Politico's choice for the Dreamer category. And to do that, I'd like to invite to the stage our Chief Policy Correspondent and co-author of Brussels Playbook, Sarah Wheaton.
So I don't need to tell this audience. Politics can be a pretty pessimistic and dismissive business. And that's why it's such a refreshing exercise each year to reflect on the people thinking big in the world of politics and policy. We revealed most of them earlier today. These people often have ambitious goals. Sometimes they're pie in the sky, sometimes they're more practical. And remember, Politico 28 is not a moral commendation. Sometimes their dreams look like others' nightmares. Let's reveal the top dreamer for 2025.
A mild-mannered Dutchman isn't the figure that immediately springs to mind when we imagine the new face of transatlantic defense. There's quite a distance separating the hallowed government halls of The Hague from the Brussels neighborhood where NATO is headquartered. Sound like a stretch? Not for our top dreamer. Once a ringleader of the EU's fiscally conservative Frugal Four, they're now preaching for more defense spending. And their push for more cash is set to be all the more intense with a familiar face back in the White House. It's a challenge that would keep anyone up at night. This person's dream is to have the best of both worlds, an America that remains committed to NATO and European countries that spend more on defense. They're the reputable dealmaker with whom everyone seems to get along, a veteran statesman whose bridge-building skills will be put to the ultimate test. Introducing our top dreamer on our Politico 28 list for 2025, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
So there you have it. 2025 is on track to be a crucial year for Europe's defense, and quite possibly for the future of the Transatlantic Defense Alliance. Joining me on stage is another crucial player for transatlantic relations. But while Mark Rutte might aim to be sort of a Trump schmoozer of sorts, our guest, also a dreamer, is known for being a forceful and uncompromising voice. As a recent Politico headline put it, Europe's next top diplomat is ready to be undiplomatic. Kaja Kallas is the EU's newly appointed High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. A former prime minister in Estonia, Kallas is a hardened expert on having Russia as a menacing next-door neighbor. Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine showed the bitter prescience of her warnings about Russian aggression. Yet she's no longer a prime minister, and instead she'll face the challenge of getting the increasingly fractious EU 27 to show a united front to the world. Please welcome to the stage Kaja Kallas, a dreamer in the Politico 28 class of 25. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I thought that it's already dinner, everybody's having fun. Am I supposed to make jokes or talk about serious things? I don't know what is expected from me.
Do you have some jokes ready to go?
I have many, but I'm not sure you're ready for them. So.
All right, we're going to have a lightning round at the end, so maybe that'll be a good moment. But yeah, well now you've given me the task of transitioning to a more grave topic, so thanks. We're going to start with the news. Bashar al-Assad's fall is a moment of hope for the people of Syria, millions of whom have fled to Europe since the civil war started. Many countries are already looking to end asylum for Syrian refugees. But the new leader has been classified as a terrorist. Concretely, what should the EU do to prevent Syria from becoming a terrorist haven?
Well, first of all, we have to work with the regional actors. I mean, the whole weekend I've been on the phone with different foreign ministers from different countries to really have unified message also to the new leadership in Syria. What everybody is concerned is that there wouldn't be any new civil war. What everybody is concerned that there is no violence against minorities, and there is no new wave of refugees, just a different type of refugees, because there are so many groups in Syria really. So I think these are the messages, and also to some of the actors in the region that they don't start to pull the cover on their side and try to take advantage of the situation, because it's very fresh. I mean, the coming days and weeks will show in which way this goes, so whether it goes to the right direction or not. But so far, I mean, the people in Syria are happy that the Assad regime is down. And it's clearly also showing the weakness of Russia and Iran, which is also good. They are not, the powerhouses of the world, really.
But you've reminded me of a sort of a Twitter account or an X account. It's called EU is Concerned.
I didn't say I'm concerned. Actually, I didn't.
You said the foreign leaders the foreign ministers that you spoke to have expressed concern.
Because everybody's watching what we should do. What we actually can do in this case. Because if there is revenge, if there is retaliation, then we still have civil war and we still have worries. Of course, already some refugees are returning from the neighboring countries, which is a good sign that they see hope also in the region, which is good. And of course, we can't build the democracy for them. We can't build the country for them. They have to do it themselves, but we can support. And I think it's very important that we have the same message with the players, the actors in the region.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me turn to another area. I mean, as sort of the reason that we see that EU is concerned so much is because it is often hard to make. Your predecessor really struggled to be able to make statements reflecting the view of the EU 27 because they needed unanimity either for treaty or political reasons. Your first day on the job, you said after visiting Kyiv, Ukraine must win. I gotta be honest with you, the political trends and the battlefield trajectory seem to be moving in the opposite direction. You've already been criticized by Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico for abdicating too forcefully for Ukraine. So, what's your game plan for, getting everyone at the table to kind of reflect a common sentiment and turn the tide of both the political trend and the facts on the ground?
After this, we had the NATO foreign ministers meeting, and actually I was very glad to see that so many foreign ministers said in their speech that Ukraine must win. Why is it important? You don't always win wars, but you never win them if you don't set victory as a goal. Because if you have, clear goal, then you also put your strategies and tactics to achieve that goal. If it is like, let's hang in there. Like, what do you do, really? I mean, what do you do? What is your strategy then? Of course, I mean, as I say, you don't always win wars, but you never win them if you don't set victory as a goal. And that's why I think it's also important to voice it out. We don't want Ukraine to lose. We don't want Russia to win. We want Ukraine to win. This is clear. And also, I was just thinking that how can you really, argue with that goal? I mean, really, is somebody then saying that, No, I mean, Russia should win this war. I mean, even I heard from the media, and then I asked my people, do we have, some kind of response? Then what we read from the media, that I shouldn't say that. No, nothing like this. So that I shouldn't say that Ukraine should win. I mean, there is a brutal attack against one country, and then I think it's clear that we don't want the bad ones to win this case.
I mean, there is a gray area. There is a gray area, especially if you're talking about a particular moment. People might say, look, actually, we just want the fighting to stop. And so
everybody wants the fighting to stop. I mean, I don't know one single Ukrainian who wants war. I don't want war. Nobody wants. But this is the understanding that, if you just have a ceasefire, if you just give the aggressor what he wants, what do you get? More wars, because this actually works. I mean, everybody who has children, try with them. I mean, if you say that, okay, you do this, and then I will do this, and then you don't follow your words, then, I mean, you're going to have more of it that you didn't want to. So I think it's the same with the aggressors. If you're really firm and you are not giving them what they want, then, it's more probable that you don't have, more wars. If you just say that this strategy works, I mean, you brutally attack another country, you breach all the rules of international law, and you get what you want. And you walk away with this. So all the aggressors and would-be aggressors in the world are carefully taking notes. Okay, this works. I should also go for my neighbor's territories. So if you don't want more wars, then actually you have to be strong, once at least.
And so if President-elect Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress say the U.S. is not going to continue to support Ukraine financially, how should Europe respond?
Well, first of all, if America is concerned about China, then they should first be worried about Russia, because it is clearly what we're seeing now in the South China Sea and all the military, exercises. They are learning from Russia. They are learning from how we responded and how strong we have been with Russia. So if you don't want problems with China, I think you have to be really strong on Russia. And that is the first thing. The second thing is that I don't think, giving Ukraine military aid is somehow, just helping them. It's also in the interest of our security, but it's also in the interest of global security, and therefore also in the interest of United States. It's an investment in security, really. How to make that message really clear? I think, we are very much interconnected, all our regions. Whatever happens in Europe has clear consequences also to United States. And with this, weekend on Syria, and seeing how Russia has backed Assad, and now he doesn't have the power to do that anymore, and so we got rid of Assad's regime, then, it made me think that, if somebody really wants to be the strong man of the world, and then there are so many dots that are actually connected to Russia. I mean, Ukraine war, if you handle this, handle Russia, then, you could solve so many issues at the same time. I mean, Ukraine, Middle East, if you think about, Iran, Houthis, everything, then you think, okay, where they also are helping. I mean, Georgia, in the world, African countries, definitely. So actually, you would take this one to show that, you have solved all the conflicts in the world.
So you're making an argument, and I think many of, as you heard from the applause, many in the room would find that argument compelling, but if the people in Washington don't, what's Europe's plan?
Well, Europe's plan is what we are right now. I mean, the question is where we are taking the money from. And actually, we have the frozen assets. I constantly talk to my fellow colleagues that we need to work on this because it is not right that our taxpayers' money are paying for something that we are not destroying. So in my mind, and being a lawyer by profession, it is clear that Ukraine has a legitimate claim towards Russia for all the damages that they are causing. We know what they are, how much they cost. So it's a legitimate claim towards Russia from Ukraine. Now, Russia has a legitimate claim towards Europe, saying that you have our assets, and we know what the assets are worth. So they also have a legitimate claim towards us. So we make a settlement of those claims, and if there's something left over after, Ukraine's reconstruction, all those money, the funds have been used, then we can, of course, pay back to Russia, but I'm just very doubtful that there is anything left over. So I mean, I think there is a way out for everybody to really signal that we are serious about these things.
Okay, I'm gonna ask my lightning round questions now. First one: who is your closest contact in Trump's orbit?
I was just thinking the other day, no, actually, I mean, I have contacts, of course, but who is the closest? Well, it's very hard to tell. Can you tell who is the closest to Trump? But I play golf, actually. I was thinking, I was very good golfer. I even, my handicap was quite good, so maybe I should, take golf up again.
Okay, so potentially Trump. Should EU countries enforce the ICC's arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu?
We are respecting the ICC and all the member states are also part of this convention, and we have the rule of law. So of course everybody's speaking for themselves, but the ICC is the organization, the rule of law that we respect. Yes.
TikTok. Is it a useful tool to reach Gen Z and younger EU citizens, or a tool of the EU's adversaries that should be banned?
Is it true that this event is sponsored by TikTok?
I think the after party is sponsored by TikTok.
After party is sponsored. Okay, that's just interesting.
We're editorially independent.
Okay, yeah. Well, what was the question again? Very
Maybe
hard
this will be
here.
a meme. A useful tool to reach Gen Z, or a tool of the EU's adversaries that should be banned?
Well, I just finished a book by Mariette Schaake called "The Tech Coup" about how we are giving our democracy to different technologies and what to do with this. So I'm really worried. I see, I mean, the examples from Romania, but also other parts, that Russians have really cracked the code how to influence the elections, and I think this is very worrying because elections, democracy is based on trust, and if you can't trust the elections anymore, then how can you trust the outcome? And now what is also a problem regarding different elections that we have had, that the election, how you say that the elections have been free and fair. You have the methodology that is from 30 years back that doesn't take into account the digital tools that are used. So in terms of the old tools, you can say that there was nothing there, but we know that all these new types of tools are very much used also in the influence of the elections. So I think we should take it very, very, very seriously.
Okay, well, my last question was going to be, since you're known as a voracious reader, what your Christmas gift recommendations would be, but you already answered, so.
No, actually, no. I think that Tech Guru is maybe a bit heavy read for the Christmas, but I just finished a book by Patrick Galley, Very Bad People, and I can really recommend that book because it's also related to my work and to show how, yeah, well, not the way you think. You read the book, read the book. But it's really giving the ideas how, you know, people, very small group of people can make a huge change. So I think this is fascinating and it's also very inspiring.
All right, well, we'll have to continue our discussion at the after party. Madam
I'm
Vice
coming then.
President, thanks you so much. I'll give the floor back to Kate.
Thank you to Kai Callas and to Sarah. That was terrific. So now we know who our top dreamers and doers are for 2025. But before we unveil our most powerful person, let's turn to our top disruptor. And introducing this category is one of Politico's very own disruptors, Executive Editor for Germany, Gordon Rapinski.
Thanks, Kate, and thanks, everyone. The disruptors are the people who actually make our jobs as journalists the most interesting. In the halls of power, there's always a certain way of doing things. Call it tradition or protocol or conventional wisdom. But our disruptors aren't having this. They are not content just to make big changes. They want to actually change the way we make policy and the way we think about politics. Disruptors can be unorthodox or downright revolutionary, harnessing movements that could actually transform the world for the better or topple beloved and important institutions. And we did unveil most of the class of 2025 disruptors this morning, and now I think it's time to see who topped the list.
They're ready to shake up the future by taking us back to the past. As Germany's center-left political coalition implodes, this person is calling for something bold, a return to the golden days of center-right politics. As nostalgia spreads, our top disruptor wants to bring German politics back to a golden era, reshaping the country with a pro-business approach without the burden of being the flag-bearer for costly social policies. They question the phase-out of the combustion engine, want a tougher stance on migration, and to go harder on Russia. Will this person be the new face of Europe's economic powerhouse? He's certainly disrupting his way to get there. Our top disruptor on our Politico 28 list for 2025 is Friedrich Merz, leader of Germany's Democratic Union.
Thank you, Gordon. Well, we couldn't have you here and not ask you about German politics. It's going to be a pretty big year ahead for you and for our German team, but for German politics. Tell us a little bit more about Friedrich Merz and the role he will play.
Well, I think we have snap elections in February, 23rd of February, so very early, and he's the front runner. So he's ahead 12, 14 points, so it's fair to say we should all get prepared to a possible Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and I think two aspects are very important about him. First of all, if he wins the elections, he will be the first Chancellor without any experience in government, so that will be quite an experiment, not only for himself, but also for the country at the end, with a lot of uncertainty, but also opportunities. And secondly, he is something like the antithesis to Angela Merkel. He was almost kicked out of politics by Angela Merkel, left politics for 12, 16 years almost, observed what happened, and now tries to do a lot of things different to what Angela Merkel did.
Yeah, so if he comes back and disrupts his way to the very top, what can we expect?
Well, let's have a look at the European perspective, for instance. Now we're here in Brussels. One of the promises that Friedrich Merz made was that he will solve the migration topic. And that will mean that he will break with particularly what Angela Merkel did in that field. And that will also mean that there will be a different tone from Germany that will maybe even be tougher than what we will see in other European countries, and will put some national interest first, and that's quite a change.
And for America, for a US perspective, what does that look like, do you think?
I think that's very interesting because Friedrich Merz at heart is a transatlantic person. He was, after he left politics, he was for more than a decade head of the Atlantic Brücke, so he knows a lot of partners on both sides of the aisle in the US. So he has a core interest in a good relationship also with the new administration, and I think he will try everything to establish a good working relationship also with the Trump administration that will challenge him for sure. But let's just have a look at what will happen in Ukraine. We all know there's a bit of uncertainty coming through the Trump presidency, and Friedrich Merz always said he will be very clear in that field and support Ukraine, maybe even more than the current chancellor did. So it might be that this transatlantic politician will have to emancipate from the US president just to keep his promises on Ukraine, and I think that will be very fascinating to watch.
Fascinating to watch. Well, we'll be watching, and thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, Kate.
So those are our top doers, dreamers, and disruptors for 2025. They represent a list that's up for debate. We very much hope you will continue the debate at the after party. But before we do, there's a couple more things in store. And it's now my great pleasure to introduce Politico's founding editor, John Harris. John is going to reveal our most powerful person for 2025. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Kate. We're almost there, just at the climax here. I've got the responsibility, the privilege, I would say, of revealing the person our journalists have identified as the most powerful person in Europe in 2025. I should say that's the Politico Europe journalists. You've got a problem with their vote, take it up with them. I didn't vote. Historically, this person is someone who embodies all three of the traits of leadership that we've talked about tonight, and does so in a way that feels especially resonant for the coming year. Last year, many of you were here will recall that our top pick was Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister of Poland. The year before that, it was, of course, Vladimir Zelensky, whose country is still enduring Russia's brutal invasion. Given all the political turmoil in 2024, including, some of you have probably read, in my own country, the United States, let's now reveal the most powerful person who we believe will shape Europe in the year to come.
Who do you call when you want to speak to Europe? Depending on who's asking, the answer might differ. But if you're Elon Musk, there's only one person you have on speed dial. Once dismissed by some as an ultra-nationalist with distasteful political views, our most powerful person for 2025 has emerged as a key figure with whom Brussels and now Washington can do business. They're at the forefront of a wave pulling European politics rightward, turning ideological policies previously deemed unsavory into palatable and implementable ideas that elicit responses ranging from indifference to enthusiastic approval. Conventional politicians are failing to counter the far-right narrative, and Europe's traditional leaders are neutralized by domestic crises. Meanwhile, this politician is seizing the moment and exerting tremendous power on the continent and across the Atlantic, presenting the overall most powerful person on our Politico 28 list for 2025, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni.
Okay.
John, we couldn't help but be struck this last weekend by this picture that's behind you on the screen there of Meloni and Trump in Paris. And we know Meloni and Elon Musk has also been growing closer. She's clearly angling to be some kind of Trump whisperer. I guess the question is, will that work? How effective can she be?
Well, I do think this is a notable choice because it underlines something I think is important that we in the United States don't always recognize, that President Trump is not simply a cult of personality or a fluke. He is a representative of a movement that is playing out in multiple areas of the world. And I think that they are part of the same broad global movement. In terms of her influence, my recommendation to her after watching several people sort of claim the mantle of Trump whisperer is to never use that phrase or allow others to use it about her. The moment that Donald Trump feels he's being manipulated or sees press coverage that he's actually under the influence of this or that person, we can almost guarantee that that person will fall out of favor, whether or not he happens to agree with her views.
So we've jinxed it now for her, essentially.
Perhaps.
We have seen his cabinet come together over the last few weeks, and I guess one of the things we've wondered sitting here in Europe is how much of a look-in will Europe get? Are these picks indicative of all sorts of other things on his plate, and Europe won't get much of a look-in?
Oh, I think that's not possible. Europe is going to always demand attention, I think, under any circumstances. And at the moment, I would say it's going to be one of the first items on his agenda. You'll recall in the debate last fall, he said that the problem of Ukraine, he said that's a war that needs to end. He said, I can end it. If you like me, I can end it within 24 hours, even before he becomes president. He's not followed up on that. But I think he does have a commitment that he is going to try to impose some sort of settlement on Ukraine. We'll see if he's successful on that. But that's going to have his attention focused on Europe.
Before we turn to our final guest, I'm curious your thoughts about the threats to democracy looking into 2025. 2024 has obviously been this huge election year in so many parts of the world, so many arenas we cover and beyond. But what do you think democracy can expect in 25? How healthy is it looking?
My view is that what Donald Trump represents and others around the world represent is only partially an ideological movement. Yes, it's about certain policies, including most notably the backlash to migration. But I think it's fundamentally a psychological movement of people who don't like the way they see the world changing, who in many cases are afraid of it, or they're resentful of it. They see people manipulating the system, and they're looking for ways to express their contempt. That's the essence of Donald Trump's politics, is the politics of contempt. He both expresses it and inspires it in exchange. The problem with the politics of contempt is that it doesn't really go very far in solving problems. It just makes citizens angry and mistrustful of each other, and I think it raises profound questions about the future of democracy in the United States and in the Western world. Not that people will throw out ballot boxes or ignore the results of elections, but that we've lost those fundamental sort of chords of respect that I think are necessary. We're supposed to debate, decide, and then come together and act. And of course, we haven't seen that. But really what we've had in the United States over the last years is a 10-year argument that hasn't actually produced big resolutions of pressing problems, immigration being the most prominent example. It's no closer to being solved in a comprehensive way in the United States than it was in 2015.
Yeah, thank you. So not entirely a cheery note to end on, but Politico will
still
certainly
got the
be there.
after party, though,
yeah,
so it's
exactly.
come on, let everybody.
We're there to cover every step of the way, whatever happens next. And thank you very much, John. But before you leave, and before you all get the party started, which I promise is just around the corner, we have our final guest joining us this evening. And to introduce her, I'd like to welcome Jamil back to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. So there you have it. Our P28 list for 2025 is official. As you can see, each of the people on this list is grappling with the biggest political challenges of our time. And our final guest this evening is no different. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is a leading voice in the world fighting against the spread of autocracy and dictatorship. For those of you who don't know her story, Tikhanovskaya rose to prominence after her husband was arrested, just days after he announced he would challenge Europe's last dictator, Alexander Lukashenko, in the 2020 Belarusian presidential elections. She took her husband's place in the election, but was forced to flee Belarus after Lukashenko claimed a landslide victory. the US and many other Western countries considered the 2020 election results to be fraudulent and have supported her as the leader of the pro-democracy movement. In 2023, Lukashenko's government sentenced her in absentia to 15 years in prison on charges of treason and forming an extremist group. She would almost certainly face prison time if she were to return to her country, and her husband remains in prison. So please welcome to the stage Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. So, we've met before. It's wonderful to see you again. I'm a big fan, obviously. So are many of the people in this room.
Thank you.
And I'm really pleased that we're ending this evening talking about such an important topic, something that runs through all of our coverage at Politico, this fight between democracy and autocracy that you've lived personally. I wanted to ask you a couple of more personal questions, if you don't mind. What was it like going from being a relatively ordinary person, to being an international symbol for the fight for freedom?
You know, Jamil, it wasn't relatively ordinary person. I really was like housewife, bringing up my children. And of course, it was very difficult to change my life completely. But I was put in such circumstances where I didn't have actually a choice. When my husband was imprisoned, I stood for him, for love to him, for love to my country. So I had to learn politics from scratch. I was absolutely an experienced person, but on the one hand, I learned the politics from the best people in this sphere, from presidents, from prime ministers, from ministers of foreign affairs. They were my teachers. But honestly speaking, maybe I will tell a very small secret that maybe my previous life of housewife somehow taught me, how to survive in politics. Because, I have a child. I was bringing up a child with special needs. And believe me, it's everyday hard work trying to rehabilitate your child. You don't know if there will be light in the end of the tunnel. You don't know how long it will take, to bring your child to normal life. The same, in fight against dictatorship. You have to work hard every day. Trying to weaken the regime, trying to strengthen people, trying to rediscover Belarus to the world because it was like great zone for everybody. And you don't know when changes will come. Where is this light at the end of the tunnel I spoke about? But I know that I have to work hard every day, to inspire people to do the same, because it's our fight, it's our people in prisons, it's our country in claws of Russian Empire and in claws of dictator. So it's our task, nobody else is.
I wanted to ask what keeps you going? What is it that keeps you fighting, keeps you this drive? What is the main motivation?
Maybe it sounds strange, but I think pain is my biggest motivator. Pain for all the people behind the bars. People who have sacrificed their lives, their freedom, to give us opportunity to work. Because, my husband is in jail. He's kept incommunicado for more than 1 year. I don't know if he's alive. And you live with this pain every day. You want so badly to release all those victims of this regime. The second one, my motivator, is Belarusian people. Despite all the repressions, despite constant fear inside the country, in spite transnational repressions that Lukashenko, unleashed towards Belarusian people, we are not giving up. People in the country went undergroundly to fight with dictators. People who in exile, we can feel, of course, more freely, to communicate, to promote Belarusian cause, but still our relatives are in Belarus. Our relatives are intimidated. Our property is confiscated. We are lack of possibility to renew our documents, but people know our goal. free and fair elections in Belarus, and release of all political prisoners. And the third one, it's our democratic partners, democratic allies. I really feel how many people really engaged in Belarusian fight. There are so many people, even in this hall, who want to help us in our fight. Politico is always highlighting Belarusian cause, though we are not deep in focus. So I know that we are not alone. We are not alone in our fight. I know that Ukrainians are not alone in their fight, because so as the fate of Ukraine and Belarus are intertwined, it's also our task to advocate for Ukraine, give Ukrainians everything they need to win this war. Because it's not just the local victory, it's our victory against dictatorship, global one. So many people inspire me, many politicians, but maybe here I should say about that sometimes I meet politicians or activists, with emptiness in their eyes. People who don't care, people who don't want to help, and my task as well to light this strive for helping those who in need in these people.
So Lukashenko is going to hold a vote, another vote, in January, at the end of January. We don't expect it to be free and fair in any way, shape, and form, but is there anything that makes you hopeful? Is there anything around that election that you think you can grab onto and gives you some sort of optimism?
First of all, here I want to remind the democratic free world that it's such, maybe you don't even think about this, that it's such a luxury not knowing who will be your next president. Because in Belarus, we for sure know who will be appointed as president, there is during so-called presidential elections. Of course, what's going to happen in Belarus has nothing in common with elections. It's imitation, it's farce. You can call it like Soviet type ritual, where Lukashenko will appoint himself. But his reappointment will not change anything for Belarusian people. It will not make him legitimate again. We see that our democratic partners, will continue the policy of non-recognition of Lukashenko's regime. I don't see any signs that, democratic allies will return to business as usual with Lukashenko because, elections were organized, so-called elections were organized. So, of course, it's not time for Belarusian people to go to the streets, to uprise visibly because, repressions are too high. Every time in Belarus, people are detained. You just don't see it. So I really want people to be ready to use real moment of opportunity to uprise again, to be on the streets and to dismantle this regime. We know that dictators, they are not invincible. They're very fragile, including Lukashenko, but we have to, to feel this trigger or this moment when we really can dismantle it. And of course, we need support and the solidarity of the whole democratic world. We have to show dictators that they are weak. Because really, dictators don't respect democracy because they think you are indecisive, you are not united, you can make, difficult and non-conventional decisions. But I'm absolutely sure I believe in democracy. Democracy has teeth, but you have to have courage to use all your instruments, all your tools, just to fight with dictators. And here, responsibility not only of politicians, it's responsibility also of private sector, responsibility of tech companies to be united, to think out of the box, because fight with dictatorship is not like local issue. It's a global issue. It's a moral responsibility of everyone to contribute into this fight. Because if not to help those who are on the front line of this fight, believe me, dictators will knock your doors very soon.
Svetlana Chokhanovskaya, the rightfully elected president of Belarus, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you all very much for joining us tonight here in Brussels and online. We'd like to thank our presenting partners this evening, General Catalyst Institute and Turner. And I'd like to thank personally the entire Politico team for doing such tremendous work, making tonight a reality. But the night's not over, as you heard, as our High Representative scooped me. The night's not over. We have an after party presented by TikTok. Please do now head up the stairs to our after party presented by TikTok. Very importantly, your ticket to the after party is your name card. So you need to pick up your name card, bring it with you as you go out. Please leave your coats and here or in the coat check and take a Politico shawl. You'll have to go outside very briefly, up the steps, and directly ahead of you is where the after party is. But we will give you a Politico shawl to keep you warm, and you get to keep it afterwards and do our branding for us, which is perfect. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for having me and for coming along, and see you next year.